Hey guys, it's Smudge here. We're back, I guess. Never been away, really. So yeah, we're here anyway. Hello, how you doing? So yeah, I come to take a look at the new C-101CC by Aviodev. Now, the EB or C-101EB model has been in DCS for some time. In fact, it came around, I think, not long after the Hawk came into DCS. And of course, we all know what's happened to the Hawk. um, that's kind of died to death and gone away. But then Aviodev, the developers of the C-101, have just kind of come out of nowhere with a massive update to their aircraft. This happened a couple of weeks ago, I believe. Excuse me, I might cough and splutter a bit. I got the flu off my son for Christmas, and it is just the gift that keeps on giving. I can't thank him enough. And yeah, I just got over one cold, one bout of flu, and now I'm kind of chesty and full of another one. So yay me! But yeah, I thought we'd take this C-101CC up for a spin, see what it's all about. I think I can remember how to start this thing up. Not really touched it in a while, but yeah, we'll have a look about it and get underway. So enough waffling and enough coughing. Excuse me. Yeah, let's take a look at this aircraft and see what it's like. So externally, as you can see here, it looks really quite cool. The external model you can't really argue with. It's nice, it's pretty, it's got all of the right kind of bits to it, I guess you could say. The shaders look nice, textures look nice, and it looks, kind of weathered. There are some nice skins, as you can see here. There's a whole kind of host of skins. I'm wearing the ED one. There's a couple of Spanish ones, like a desert and another one there. And then there's a USA kind of skin and a Russian skin as well, which is cool. So the external models and things like that are all really cool. So let's take a look at the cockpit. So the textures inside the cockpit are absolutely brilliant. Really can't complain about them. So the weathering and the textures inside the cockpit look absolutely fabulous. In the C-101EB, when it first came out, they all look a bit flat and a bit drab. So they've definitely kind of gone over this again, and I'm going to say they've done a fantastic job. The instruments look good, the texture and paneling look good, and what's even cool about this is that there's a back seat as well. And that looks cool too. And it's all fully functional. You can fly it from the back seat as much as you can from the front seat. There's a few more knobs and dials and things in the front seat. I guess that the back seat's mainly for the instructor and the front seat for the pilot. But yeah, you can do pretty much lots of things from the back seat. So anyways, let's go through the startup sequence. We'll taxi out, take off. Got a couple of things to blow up and then come in for landing. So the startup sequence on this is really straightforward. Now you can do it with ground power and you can do it with without ground power. But I'm going to switch on the ground power just to show you what that's like, because it is actually really quite cool. So if we request ground power on, just noticed that I'm not capturing sound on the right channel. So there we go. Right, okay, that should now be capturing sound properly. So yeah, here we go. You get a little generator, a little kind of APU plugged into your aircraft, and this is the only aircraft in DCS that does this when you request ground power, which is really cool. It's such a neat little touch, and it's been there from the very start. It used to be really loud, but when you requested ground power, it used to be quite overwhelming. But now it's kind of okay. So what we'll do, you can actually just click here to switch on ground power. And as you can see, the RPMs change on the APU thing, and you do get some instruments, but again, everything's still kind of dead inside. What we'll do is switch on the battery switch, which is not really needed. You can switch that on and off at the moment because we're drawing from ground power, not the battery. But we do need to tie in a generator. And as you can see, things start coming to life there. We hit this switch here, forget what it's called. generator switch, and that's the bus switch. Yeah, so you've got the bus and the generator, and then you've got the inverter here. So with those three switches on, and then everything starts kind of springing to life. Now you can just do this with the battery, but I wanted to show what it's like starting from the battery and the ground power as well. So we'll switch on the battery switch as well, but at the moment the cross feeds are off on those, or the battery bus thing, so the battery isn't actually taking effect. We'll go ahead and turn, if we look down here, we've got the fuel panel, so we need to turn on the fuel pumps and the fuel switch. That's these two switch things here, and then it's just simply a case of this switch here moving it up into start. So we click start, light comes on showing that the engine's turning over, and then we start getting RPM here. When this gets up to about 50, we go ahead, we click on the throttle, that moves it out of the idle indent, and then everything starts springing to life, which is all cool and groovy. And one thing you notice there is that when you switch on power, the pilot puts his helmet on as well, which is really quite cool. So we've got a couple more cautions here. We've got generator, canopy and oxygen. So turn on the oxygen, that gets rid of that. We can close the canopy by hitting this bar up here. That shuts it, and then you push this yellow handle forward here to lock it forward. Now what I'm going to do is switch off the APU, the auxiliary power unit, or the external power, and then go across the batteries, and then that'll get rid of this one. Now at the moment I can't switch on the bus things for the battery, that's not working, so we turn this off and then press those in. That one had actually already come across. Cool, there we go. So now we're operating off the battery and the kind of aircraft's own power, and not the external generators. We can actually, I need to open up the canopy to do this because it don't respond to me for some reason when the canopy's closed. We'll tell them to turn off ground power.
Chief, turn off the ground power.
Copy. Ground power is now off.
And then this thing should disappear. There we go. So that's ground power off, and then we'll close the canopy again. Okie dokie. Right, and then we'll lock that forward. Now we're ready to go. Now what I'm going to do is just sit here idle just for a couple of minutes, or at least a minute, just to show you what happens. Now, you've got oil pressure. Now at the moment it's in green, but as you sit idle for a long time, or more than a minute or two, it comes up with an oil pressure warning, and then the master caution goes off. To get rid of that, just simply advance the throttle. The oil pressure will go up, and then everything kind of becomes happy. I don't really think we'll need to wait for that. I've explained it. Yeah, you get an oil pressure warning come up on the master cautions panel, and then you just advance the throttle and you go. So we'll take the parking brake off, which is this big yellow handle here, and we'll start throttling up. Now to steer on the ground, it's all done with toe brakes. So your toe brake left, toe brake right. You can't do it with rudders, that has no input. So taxiing's really straightforward. You can't really go too far wrong. Just tap your toe brakes, little bit of kind of toe brake input here and there, and then keeps your aircraft turning nicely. It's a lot nicer than what the Hawk was. With the Hawk, you tapped your toe brake, and then it brought the aircraft to a screeching halt, and then you had to kind of go forward and then tap your toe brake and hope it turned before it comes to a screeching halt. But with this, holding the toe brakes, you can actually kind of get a fair bit of maneuverability, or a bit of turning in. It doesn't really stop the aircraft unless you've got both brakes on. So yeah, you can maneuver on the ground quite nicely. Sorry about my coughing, I do apologise for that. So we'll taxi out here to the runway, and then we'll go ahead and take off, and then look at what it's like to fly. And then we've got some rockets and a couple of bombs on here as well. Yeah. Now there was one thing I wanted to point out as well while I'm on the ground. Now I have done a quick test flight in this just to get my controls set up, and I had a problem with the trim. The trim was locking itself fully nose up. So a quick scout around on the forums, and I found out what the problem is. Now with the air brake switch, it's in and out, or extend and retract. So you pull the air brake out, these barber poles change, then it's out. Okay, you put it in, and then you've got in. Right? Now, if you've got this set to a switch which locks into two positions, so out and in, if you hold the air brake switch in, this is the elevator trim, and you'll notice it'll start trimming to nose up. See, I'm not touching the trim switch at all, but the trim is changing. Now, the aircraft's own flight computer trims the aircraft to compensate for the air brake. Now, if you hold the trim switch in a certain position, like backwards or forwards, the aircraft will trim itself to counter that, and it'll keep trimming because the input's still being put in. It doesn't realise that the air brake's all the way in, it needs to stop countering the trim. So if we pull the air brake out and then hold the air brake all the way into the out position, then just keep holding the switch back, you'll see that the aileron trim, which is, if I just zoom in on it here just so you can see what I'm talking about, this line here, I'm not touching the trim switch at all, I'm just holding the air brake switch, and then by holding the air brake switch into the out position, this thing's now trimming itself up, or sorry, nose down, which is that, and it's nose up with the air brake switch in. So we'll just center off our trim here for takeoff, but just something to be aware of, because that's an issue I came across, and if other people, kind of take off and don't realise what's causing that, I initially thought it was some kind of problem with the flight model. I was just like, what the hell's going on here? And then, like I said, I had a look through the forums, found out what the problem was, and I was like, that's actually really quite cool. That's a really, really cool effect. Yeah, so we'll get lined up on the runway here. One thing with the nose wheel steering is it's not very responsive. I find that if you jiggle the brake rather than pressing and holding it, it turns a little bit tighter than just by holding the brake full on. So we'll just get lined up here. Now, one thing I'll do as well is turn on the aircraft lighting. Now, the internal cockpit lighting is really cool as well. They've done a great job with this. You've got flood lighting as well, floodlights in red, which you've got dim and bright. And then you've got all of the external lights here, which go into bright and dim as well. And you can see when the lights are on, because in your mirror you get to see the strobe light flashing as well, which is really cool. So we'll go ahead and make our takeoff roll now. Just turn our radio on, even though it's not really tuned to anything. HSI's aligned, that's all aligned, show ground speed, that's okay. So takeoff, we just go full power. We've got takeoff flap set. Just control the direction with the toe brakes up until about 50 knots, 60 knots. Just as you start seeing this needle moving, you can start putting inputs in with the rudder. So as you can see, that's now using rudder rather than toe brake, and she's responding to it quite nicely. Now she does rotate at about 120 to 140. You'll find that the aircraft will start nosing up itself when it's ready. If you pull the stick all the way back now, you'll find that the nose wheel will just bounce, the thing won't lift, it'll just causes the nose wheel to bounce. So we'll keep the stick steady until about 120, 130, and then we'll start easing back on the stick now, coming up to 140, and then she just bolts herself up into the air, so it's quite cool. We'll bring the gear up. Then we'll bring our flaps up, then we'll trim up for level flight. Now, one thing you will find is that as you're gaining speed, you will need to trim down quite a lot, like nose down. The change in the attitude of the aircraft does change quite dramatically with speed changes. Now, one thing that's really quite cool, if you start pulling too high an angle of attack, you get that lovely little warning there just to say, hey, ease off your stick a little bit, you're pushing a bit too hard, which is a neat little feature as well, just like an anti-stall angle of attack warning there to say, you're doing something silly and you're going to pay for it. So we'll just start climbing out here. As for maneuverability, I do have quite a lot of ordnance on the wings, so she's quite heavy. She's sluggish. Like I said, I do have a couple of big bombs and lots of rockets on the wings, also missiles. We have a look external here. We've also got the gun pod on. It carries two different types of gun pods. You've got one which has got two small caliber guns, and then I think this is like a a rotary gun. It sounds like a minigun when the thing's firing anyway, and it chucks out lots of bullets. But that's quite cool. The gun armament and gun counters here, the master arm and the bomb selection switches are all down here to do with rockets and stuff like that as well. Now the aircraft does carry, I forget what it's called, it's anti-ship missile, Seahawk something, Sea-Fixin', can't quite remember what it's called, but it's a bit useless at the moment because you have to select a target in the mission editor. You can't do it on the fly in-game, which, yeah, hopefully that changes, but that kind of to me makes it very limited, especially considering I always fly multiplayer, because then you need to kind of have the mission for the aircraft pre-programmed into the mission editor for the multiplayer mission. That's just, yeah, but the bombs and rockets and things like that work just great. So I've got a few targets set out over here, and we're going to switch on our bombs first. So for bombing we switch on our master arm, which is over here somewhere. Hopefully I can find it. Oh, there we go. Yep, so that's the master arm on, and then the lights come on to show that that's on. We'll choose bomb, nose and tail, armaments, and then we'll choose our ripple, quantity, time there. And then we'll put that into ripple, I think. Is that, yeah, that's ripple, okay. Then that should ripple off both of our bombs in one pass. And then as you can see, we've got this up here which is showing 130, which is the cannon armed. Now to select the bomb pylons you need to select the actual pylons down here, so I've got the bombs on the innermost pylons, so we'll choose our two inner pylons here, just press the switches, and then we get yellow lights up here showing that that pylon is armed, it's ready to go. We'll turn on our aiming sight here. Now one thing you'll find is that you can't see the gun pipper, it's too low, but if you lower your seat, it comes into view. Another really neat feature with this aircraft. Yeah, you have to lower your seat in order to see where the gun pipper is. If you're bombing, just raise your seat up and it helps you kind of see whereabouts you're going to be dropping your bomb. With the gun pipper you can set it to auto or manual, so you can lower this down here, but with manual bombing it is just mostly kind of best guesstimation, kind of luck, skill, all that type of stuff. So we'll see if we can hit something here. I'm probably thinking not, but we'll give it a go anyway. Now the bombs I've got in here are supposed to be incendiary bombs, but I don't think they actually do incendiary stuff yet, but we'll give this a try anyway. So we'll line up and bomb's gone. Yeah, so we hit the target I was aiming for there, the EWR radar. Yeah, no, like standard kind of explosive bombs there rather than being like big fiery incendiary, but I think that's maybe a limit of DCS. But those type of bombs are supposed to be incendiary bombs anyway. Now what we'll do is that we'll arm up our rockets. So for rockets we choose the pylons for the rocket pods, and then we need to change the bomb mode from bomb into rock. Now when this is set to rock, it will fire, if I will set this to 40 in manual. There we go, and then we'll lower our seat down just so I can see the gun pipper a bit better. Okay, now when this is in rock, you'll fire just one pair of rockets at a time, so one from left, one from right. If you want to fire them all at once, just stick it in burst, and then you'll fire as long as you're keeping hold of the button. So you hold the button, you fire rockets, you let go of the button, you stop firing rockets. So let's get in position here, we'll roll on target, and then see if we can't kill it with some rockets. Boom! Lots of targets smashed to bits with rockets, and really cool effects. think I still should have some rockets left after that, so we'll make one more pass with rockets on those targets, and then we'll go for guns on the second targets. Excuse me, again, apologies for the coughing. I know it's probably as hard for you hearing it as it is for me coughing, but there we go. I do need to turn off these kill notifications on the left. I do find them quite distracting. So the aircraft's very easy to fly, it's very responsive. It is on an EFM, although I have found that it's got some quirks, the same as the Hawk. If you fly at about 99 knots, you can continually fly upwards just by holding the stick all the way back, and the aircraft doesn't really depart. But you know, I'm sure that the flight model will get better over time. This is just their first pass on the new flight model, I believe, so yeah, great things I think coming for this aircraft. Let's line up here. Too low, I think, with those, yeah. But then we'll switch the gun. proper long squirt with the gun there, and got quite a few. 33 rounds remaining. Just watching the speed coming off here. Proper zoom climb out there, and then we'll pull over. Now, one thing, if you start getting that stall caution, if you pop the flaps down to take off, then you do get a lot more kind of pull on the stick before the caution starts going off. I guess because you get a bit more lift out of the aircraft. So I'll put the flaps away here. I'll make one more guns pass, and then we'll bring it in for a landing. Don't want to take too long with this, because you know, attention span of people these days, I guess. Yeah, I find out you do need to trim this aircraft quite a lot. As the speed changes, it does vary quite a bit with the amount of kind of angle of attack it gives. Yeah, that's alright there. Left 4 targets overall there, I think. So not bad overall. So we'll head back to home plate, and then see if we can get ourselves back down on the ground safely. So we'll turn our gun sight off here. Now, another thing actually, with the missiles carrying the magics here, I'll just show how those work. So you've got a cover here which changes from air to ground to air to air. So you just move this up into the air to air mode. Select the Mavericks, put this into rock, which arms up the Mavericks, and hit weapon fire, he says. No, sorry, NC. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So that's how you get rid of those. So that's in NC, air-to-air mode, and then that's those off. So I'll put that back down and then close the cover. I'll go, and then we'll turn off the master arm and put everything back to bed there. And there's our runway, so we'll go make a flyover pass, and then come in for a tasty landing. This was kind of a good looking aircraft. It's very square, very bulbous, very Spanish. Now, I think they've done a fantastic job with this module. Really kind of pleased with it. And yeah, it's at least they've kind of fulfilled their promise. You know, they have stuck with it. They've done their development. They've made it right in the end, unlike other companies who just decided to tuck tail and run. But, you know, I guess we all know what happened there, don't we? So pop the brakes. So we'll line off here, we'll put the flaps all the way down for landing, and then we'll dump the undercarriage as well, and then retrim. And then we have the landing indicator here, same as kind of what you get on the Hawk, so you can trim for on speed. So we're going a bit quick at the moment, but I don't mind too much with that, so I'll just keep trimming up and powering back. So we'll turn in for landing here and then hopefully not screw this up. And if you so wanted, you could even make the landing from the back seat. Just pushing out the air brake here, just gotta sort of slow down a bit. I find that it does tend to float quite a bit on the flare. So here we go, we're on the flare and it's floating quite a lot, so we'll just help it down here. That's us down, and you do get quite nice audio feedback from the wheels on the runway and stuff like that when you get back on the ground. So bring the flaps up, bit of toe braking here just to help bring us to a stop. Tight turn off the taxiway here. So many small features on this aircraft I just love. This is definitely an aircraft that I'd recommend. If you're pining for the Hawk, or you miss what the Hawk could have been, then I think this is definitely the aircraft for you. I'm definitely going to spend a bit more time on this, kind of learning more about it. I'm sure that there's lots of things that this thing can do that I'm yet to learn. So we'll just taxi back in and park up here, and then we'll shut down and call it a night. Hope that you've enjoyed this video. It's been a while since I've done any sort of videos like this, kind of taking a look at aircraft, doing sort of reviews, if you will. If you'd like to see more videos like this, then, you know, like, comment, subscribe, all that other nonsense. It matters in some kind of way to somebody, you know. Yeah, it means a lot to me when you guys do it. I won't lie. I like getting comments. Makes me feel not so alone in the world. Oh. Is it me, or is this taxi going on forever? Now, another couple of things, actually just a couple of small issues. I found that the aircraft can't refuel when it's on the ground. Like I said, the anti-ship missile, you can't use that unless you've pre-programmed in the mission editor what its target's supposed to be. There's a couple of issues with the EFM, but then nothing really major. It feels nice to fly. It kind of, you know, it does what you'd expect it to. It's not as bad as what the Hawk was in some respects. But yeah, overall I'd say this is a proper nice module, a bit of a diamond in the rough. As I go skidding along there and my toe brakes aren't stopping the aircraft for some reason. Why are you still going? I'll put the parking brake on. There we go. Tried toe braking there, but the aircraft just wanted to keep going. So there we go. So we'll shut the engine down here. Oops. tracker is not letting me do that. Yes. So we'll turn the battery off. Yeah, and then as you can see, they put the helmets on, the ladders come down, and it's all really cool. Really nice module. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. You know, I would consider the C-101 as a module. I think, you know, it's definitely got a bright future ahead of it, and it's along the lines of the L-39 in that it's probably a good training aircraft, and it's also a good, you know, kind of light ground attack aircraft. So yeah, I'll leave this here. I'll say thanks very much for watching. Hope you all have a good night, and bye for now.